Next thing I want to do is animating this fish, right? So I kind of want this fin to rotate when so that he looks like he's swimming. I want the eye to move. Maybe do something with the fin, the tail as well. And how do we do that? Right. So very quickly, let's first disable this fish. We don't really need it anymore. We'll just delete it. And click on this fish. And then let's go to Window, Animation. Right. So this is the animation tool that we're going to be using to animate different parts of the fish. I'm going to put this down here so it's a little bit easier to manage. The concept of animating something is very simple, right? So it's over a period of time you want something to change. So that's the basic idea of an animation, and the animation tool basically allows you to do that with, you can see that there's a timeline up there, and here you're going to add all the different things that needs to change when the game starts, when we go through time. We click on this animation. When we look at the animation tool, we notice that there's nothing here, right? If you click on this drop-down menu, where if you have animations ready, then you'll see them down here, but there's nothing here. So we click on this, and we can simply click on Create New Clip. And this allows you to create a new animation clip for this object. Right, so that's create. Let's name this swim. So that's going to be the swim animation. And a couple things happened. One, we have the new swim animation file. We also have this new animator file. And what does the animator do? Right, so let's click back on this object. You can see that now all of a sudden there's a new component to this object called animator. If you double click on it, Unity opens up the animator control window, and you can see that there's the swim animation in there. The animator basically controls the animations that you have for this object. We're going to come back to the animator soon, but for now let's just focus on the animation. As long as we know that the swim animation is inside the animator and the animator is inside the object, now we know the animation will be controlled properly. So let's go back to the scene. Okay. And a couple more things here. If you look at the timeline, you can left click and drag on the timeline to see the animation once we have something down here that we're animating. And you can also zoom in and out using your middle mouse button and the scroll wheel. And down here it says samples 60, and that means we're going to have 60 frames in a second. Now you can use this to speed up or slow down an animation, and it'll be more obvious once we get going, but basically that's how many frames you're going to define inside a second, how many frames you want. So let's see. Let's animate this fin first, this fin in the back, this left fin. Now you notice that there is this red button that when I click on it, the entire button turns red. The controls up here also turns red, and that means we're in recording mode. So anything that's changing in the scene is going to be recorded into the animation on this frame. Now we're at the very first frame, 0 frame here. So what I want to do is I want to say, okay, at the 30th frame, I want this to be down here. So we can see that from 0 it was up here, the 30 is frame, now the fin is down here. If we click and drag across the timeline, you can see that moving. If we hit play, you'll see the animation playing. Now the animation doesn't quite loop because it goes from 0 to 30 to 60, and then actually it was to 30, and then it jumps back to 0, which is where the fin is up all the way up here, and that's not what we want. So let's create another key, right? So what we're doing here is there are all these different frames, and we add a key to it, and when we have a key on a frame, it records the variable number, and then it basically calculates what's necessary for it to move from this number here, the rotation here, to this number here, and everything in between is calculated automatically. So all we need to do is manually adding these key frames, and then the system will take care of everything in between. So that's very convenient. Now let's go to frame 60. Let's just complete this loop. And all I want to do is double click on this thing here, and it'll add a keyframe there. A keyframe is where we record the variables we want to be at a certain position or rotation or a certain number, right? So you can either double click on it, or you can click on this button here as well. Okay, now we want this number to be the same as this, so it basically goes here and then rotates back to the original. Right, so you can click on this, copy, click on this again, and paste. Right. So now you can see that the number is the same. So we'd expect the animations to go, the fin to go down, and then back up again. Okay, you can play. Okay, so that looks quite good. So let's do the same thing with the other fin, right? And this time I'm going to do it slightly differently. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Add Curve. So instead of directly manipulating the object and have the animation tool recording it, I'm simply going to add the object from the Add Curve menu. And what Add Curve means is it's adding an animation curve. Right, we'll talk about animation curves in a bit, but let's click on that, select the component we want to animate. Going to be fin on the right and the rotation again. And what you notice is when you do that, when you use the Add Curve button, it created two keyframes. You created the beginning one and the end one, and then they have the exact same number. You can see that that's 0, and that's also 0. So that's a nice way for you to create something that loops back to its original position. Now, again, we can just click on the this keyframe here, frame 30, and what I want to do here is click on this again, and let's see where this should be. Let's say maybe down here, right? So 0 down there, come up. We can even move this a little bit so that the two fins aren't as synchronized. Right. Okay, so I think that's quite nice. If we play, oh, that looks alright. Actually, let me move this up here so you can see it in the game view. Alright, so that's what the animation looks like in the game. Now, I noticed that the towards the end of the animation, there's a slight sort of pop. It's not very smooth towards the end. Like when it comes back up, there's a doesn't look very smooth to me, and so I just want to double check something here. Let's click on curves. So we've been using animation tool in the dope sheet mode, which is basically showing you time and the keyframe, right? So that's very easy and simple to use. If you click on curves, it shows you the actual curve of the animations, right? So if you look at, okay, now we're looking at the rotation value on this right fin object, and this is the actual number that we're looking at. For each frame, that's the curve of the value, and you can see that towards the end it's very sharp. So when you loop this animation to this point, it doesn't have a smooth transition. So let me just quickly fix that. So you can just click on this note, right click, and go to flat. Now that's going to flatten that out. We do the same thing here, flat. Now it looks a lot more smooth, if you can see that. So this is sort of like, if you're looping, this is what the curve will look like, and it's a lot more smooth. So let's do the same thing for the other rotation here as well. Flat, flat. Okay. Let's go back to the dope sheet. Also, you can do that here as well if you just go right click, flat. Right. Okay. Now when we play the animation, it looks a lot more smooth, a lot smoother when it comes back up and down again. Okay, so that's good. That's good.